Hey, everybody, and welcome to Beyond the Trailer Park. First of all, apologies. We haven't been here for 2 whole fucking weeks, so, sorry. Couple weeks ago, we were both feeling kind of shitty, so we said we need a week off. And then last week was all Skylar's fault, but, we'll just blame him. That whole wanting to, make a living and feed yourself, I don't know what the hell's wrong with that.
What?
Well, obviously he's got little ones to feed too, so I guess we can't talk too much. But oh, hey,
so, you want to say hi to everybody?
Hello.
Say hello to everybody out there. So you want to say good night? You're about to go to bed. Say good night. Good night.
Good night.
Cutie pie. Sorry, I messed up last week. That was my fault. Some things with work came up, and unfortunately, I had to go in. Sadly.
Like I said, this whole wanting to feed yourself shit, I don't know, man.
It's overrated is what I would say.
No. Well, anyway, we'll get back to you in a minute. But anyway, joining us from Pennsylvania as usual. Good evening, Beth.
Good evening.
And Morgan is up to her eyeballs in studying for the bar, so we'll let her do her thing this week. And I think, was she right?
24th.
The 24th. So after the 24th, we'll see more of Morgan. But right now, she's just in, cram freakout mode. So we'll send her our best. And even poor Trav had to do without Morgan this week. So we know she's probably pretty...
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Trav posted that they aren't going to have Morgan to host with them this week either. So, yeah, it's what it is. But like I said, hopefully... once she gets through the bar, we'll be, things will calm down a bit. Our co-host is a brand new law school graduate, Skylar, so she's freaking out before she writes the bar, and that's why she's not here, because she wants to cram every last bit of legal.
It's tough. That's a tough test, though, too. So I mean, I understand.
Well, and she's also writing a multi-state bar exam, so yeah.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
Oh, for sure. So we'll hopefully see Morgan in a couple of weeks. So there's that. But joining us, Trav says, "Don't worry, I got some potential substitute co-hosts lined up." Awesome. Yay. Good. You can always pester us if you need help with that too, Trav. Just don't, you can do that. It's all right. We don't mind. Besides, I don't normally get to loan Beth out to anybody, so
I'm not the interview type.
I know.
I'm too one track minded, and so it's kind of hard for me.
Well, if you get the right interviewer, they can steer you, but
Yeah, I'm too stuck on one or two different topics. In fact, earlier today, I had posted on my timeline, and I'm like, I have this really, really bad itch to get back into the Nephilim Giants bullshit.
I saw that.
And it's like, it's some of the stuff that I've seen posted lately, it's just like, it all falls back to a periphery subject that's kind of shoved underneath, is the serpent seed doctrine, which... if you're not familiar, it's basically, it can be one that Eve fucked Satan and had Cain, and Cain, the mark of Cain is actually he became black. You know where I'm going with that.
Yes.
And then underneath that, kind of sideways to it, is the curse of Ham, where Ham cursed his son Canaan, or God cursed his son Canaan, and
same place.
Yes, that ends up in the exact same place, and with the current socio-political atmosphere, I've been seeing quite a few memes leaning towards that, and it's like, seriously, you're using the fucking serpent seed doctrine to support your claim? Well, it's like, oh my god, it's like...
It's a lot of crazy shit to support that stuff, though.
Yeah, it's just, but I've been seeing, like, I've been actually seeing it from, like, for lack of a better word, normal people, which really makes me kind of very disconcerted, because it's like, do you guys even, even realize what you're saying. And it's like most of them don't, because one conversation I got in was this lady was saying, well, it's a known fact that in the Bible that the curse on Cain was that he became African American or some such bullshit. And I'm like, do that. Listen to what you just said.
Well, that might be difficult for some people.
Yeah, it just, so I have this really bad itch to dig back into it, but I don't know if mentally if I'm ready for it.
Yeah, that's some crazy ass shit. And I mean, and we'll get to it before too long, but some of the nut jobs that Skylar's been talking to is even alluded to some of that stuff.
Yeah, well, they all actually, at least the ones I've listened to and know some of their background, they all have it in their background. Yeah. And if you're a King James only believer, I can guarantee you that you espouse the serpent seed doctrine, because it's like,
let's get into who Skylar is and what he does a little bit here. So Skylar has a channel, and he likes to invite theists of various stripes on and debate them, which I love to do. Is knows that. He's had a lot more luck with getting them to come on, though, than I have, which is good. But he's had some real winners come on, which we'll get to. First of all, which I found really intriguing, because I've known quite a number of people that have a similar kind of background. You were raised a Christian, but you were also on track for the ministry. And I know a number of atheists that were on track. You're actually looking across from one, not me, the other one. So yeah, if you want to tell us a little bit about, how did you go from that to, oh, hey, Matt Gilmore is in the house. How do you?
Matt's a good dude. I like Matt a lot.
I've known Matt for a little while. We were talking about, he was looking forward to coming to see you tonight. So there you go.
Good. Yeah, he's going to be coming back on my channel soon. It's been great. He helped me do some reviews on some of Ben the Baptist's stuff, some of his sermons full of hate speech.
Well, first of all, how did you go from wanting to be a minister to debating nut jobs? And
so let's talk about that. So you don't understand. So when I was young, I grew up kind of Catholic. I wouldn't say I really grew up religious, okay? Because my mom would try to drag us out of bed to go to Catholic church every Sunday. And we would fight her tooth and nail. And eventually she just kind of gave up by the time we were teenagers. And I'd kind of given up on that stuff. I'd always been interested in it, right? I grew up, I'm 39 now, so I grew up during the 80s. And I always thought, sorry if you hear my daughter screaming.
It's okay.
A second. I grew up in the 80s, and we always had this fear that the world was going to end. We always thought there'd be like a nuclear annihilation, and it was going to be awful. And I really was obsessed with the book of Revelation. And so I used to read all kinds of books on it, and I used to read Revelation, and I was kind of into the Bible. But it wasn't until my later teens that I started kind of like, let's just say I got a lot of trouble, right? I was hanging out with really bad people. I was basically either going to be destined for prison or a drug addict, basically at one point in my life. And I was going through some rough times. In my senior year of high school, I had a theater teacher actually kind of basically just treat me like a human and actually talk to me. She was also an evangelical Christian, and she started bringing me to church, which I guess nowadays would totally be a no-no, like actually bringing me to a church. But, she invited me to a church, and I'll admit it was a very nice church. Like, this was a church that was very down to earth. It was very gay friendly in a lot of those areas. Like they weren't anti-gay, and they were very, they didn't focus on the negativity of the Bible. They were really just focused on, hey, we're all, we're all fallen. We all could be better people. So let's praise Jesus and love him and do better for our community. Right. So it was a really kind of positive message in general. And you can get sucked into that. Like, that's real easy, right? Because
yes.
It feels good. You're around people who are like happy and welcoming and loving towards you. And I got into it. Like, I was going to Bible studies. My job actually too, because it was right around when I graduated high school, and then my job was literally right around the corner from it. So I was able to kind of like get off work and go to like church basically like 3 days a week. I'd go on Wednesday nights, Friday nights, and Sunday. Yeah, I was hardcore about it. When I got into something, I got into it basically. And I would pray for hours, like literally sit in my room and just like listen to worship music quietly in the dark, just praying, worshiping and stuff. But I really got into it, and eventually, really what happened was a slow evolution after that.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more me reading the Bible was the first thing, and actually reading it. Because in church, it's funny. In church, what happens when you go to like a more moderate, non-denominational church, what they do is they focus on the happy-go-lucky stuff, the positive stuff.
Warm, fuzzy.
So, yeah, and that stuff feels good and warm. And listen, I'd rather a church focus on that stuff, to be honest with you, than to focus on...
let's do it that way.
Yeah, then to focus on like the fire and brimstone, let's hate the gays, kill everybody, kind of deal. So like that kind of stuff, so it was like good. But anyways, I started reading more, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. I was like, and then funny enough, I read a book it was a New Age book called A Conversation with God by Neil DeWalsh. Is that his name? Neil DeWalsh something. But very New Ageist. It was like this dude who was like almost homeless and poor. And he basically believed, he started writing, and he believed him and God were having a conversation. And it's a whole book just back and forth. Like for a fiction, but it's not really he doesn't think it's fiction, but for a fiction book, it's damn interesting, right? Like it's entertaining. Right. It brings up some new ideas, some new concepts. And what it taught me was like things like, why would a God ever really create a place like hell? Why would a God, do the terrible things that are in the Bible? Like, why would he not just love you for who you are, basically? And that was the first book that kind of just got me, wait a minute, like off that like Christian path, like just like, wait a minute, this is a new way of thinking about things, and a new concept. So, where else can this go? And then the more I just studied, the more I understood it. I was just like, this is nonsense. There's no way that this is true at this point. But I was, funny enough, I was a deist for a long time. It wasn't until recent. I was about a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago, that I kind of left deism. So I kind of still kept some of that God stuff around a long time. It's not like it goes away. I'm almost 39 years old now. Yeah.
It's funny because Beth and I have a little friendly rivalry about that, because as I say, she also was on track to be a minister at one point.
Yeah.
And it took her like 10 years to sort of transition from, let's try this denomination, that denomination. Now I'm spiritual, a Buddhist, this, that, and finally to no, it's all crap.
Yeah.
And I kind of had a light bulb moment and went from, telling people to repent to full just in about 2 weeks.
That's pretty.
Yeah.
Pretty,
2 weeks
and
fucking years.
And I mean, I was telling my 7-year-old brother that he better repent because he was going to burn in hell, kind of shit.
Oh.
And then I was like, holy crap, it's all fake. Well, fuck that. I don't have to do any of that shit. And then I was like, and I mean, I have been what they call a Gnostic atheist ever since day one. So I'm like a hard 7. I don't like the Dawkins scale, but I'm a hard 7 on that. But that's a whole other topic. We don't need to get into that. But
I find it funny that you got into the Neil Donald Walsh book, because I actually have interviewed him.
Really?
Yes, back in my paranormal days.
Yeah. How was he? What was he like, that guy?
I thought, so how do I phrase this so it doesn't come out as nasty as it sounds? He was too sickeningly sweet, and in my opinion, alternative spirituality is no better than Christianity. Is, in fact, in some cases, if you go the Jay-Z Knight route, it's more dangerous. But I fell into a slight period of getting sucked into the paranormal and atheist already for like 17 years. So religion is very pervasive, and I can see how easily people can fall for it. And it was a really bad point in I was searching for answers and ended up with scientifically sounding garbage. But yeah, I've actually
stuff Wolfbitin likes to put up. That sounds really good, but if you know anything about it, it's horseshit.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's the thing, and that's why I think what you do as far as on your channel with your interviews is you strip them down to basically, and why we're having you on. Well, not the only reason, but why I extended an invitation is you recently interviewed a child preacher, or thinks he's a preacher, who basically wants to kill gays. I'm sorry, I take offense to that. I take a lot of offense to that because I'm a lesbian, and it's just like it's basically he's in the mold of Steven Anderson and Donnie Romero, that whole clan. And if I dug hard enough, I could bet you my last freaking paycheck he either listens to the dude, which I'm pretty sure he does.
He's a fan of Anderson.
Oh, yeah,
and I didn't even have to go searching too much just because of the bullshit he spouts, because that's what Anderson does, and it's just like, so
But you strip it down to the bare bones of, do you really think that this is a good idea?
And who we're referring to is Matt Powell, and we'll get into it. We'll get into it a little more in a bit. But I just found, after finding your video and through Hammett Meta on Friendly Atheists, and listening to his interview with you, it was just like, since that interview, like a couple days out, he doubled down on it.
Yep.
And I just found it, because you, in your interview, as we'll get to, asked him, basically like Deb said, do you really think that? And he, reiterated it, and then he doubled down on it a few days later. It just blows my mind.
Well, your reaction was something else, because he said that and you're like, whoa, what did you just say?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it. Because I honestly, when I invited him on the channel, the only thing, so one thing you got to learn about my channel, and for those who haven't seen my channel before, is I don't really screen who comes on.
Right.
If you send me an email, and you want to come on and have a discussion about theology and things, I just pretty much invite you on. I kind of enjoy just getting to meet someone new for the first time, getting to know their views, and it's like it makes for good entertainment too, because you really get to know somebody for the first time. The only thing I had seen of Matt Powell was a video about him making fun of atheists playing video games.
Yes.
And I was like, this is hilarious. This will be comedy gold. We should get him on my channel. And I just basically left a message on one of his videos. I was like, hey, come on my channel. We'll discuss theology. Surprisingly, he emailed me back. He came on, and then as we're talking, like I said, when he got to the point, I'm used to people who are Christian being like, gays are awful, they're terrible, things like that, right? That's just every day. It's not surprising.
The whole abomination.
Yeah. They're going to hell. Okay, get it, heard it 100 times. But then when you're like, all of a sudden you're like, oh well, the government should execute gay people.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard some crazy stuff on my channel. I've heard Christians say that God hates children.
I get that one.
Yes, Matt Slick, Bible thumping wingnut.
Oh, yes, I know. I know about those two. Oh.
Yeah, good.
What I found interesting as I was going through your videos, I don't have the stomach like Deb does for some of these debates, so I kind of pick through them. For me to sit, Steven Anderson is one I like to debunk, so to speak, from a theological aspect. And sitting through him is pretty difficult. Hoven's even worse, but some of the ones that you've had on, I'm like, oh my God, this dude has the patience of a saint, and I don't even believe in saints or God.
It's
but
like,
I watched the Matt Powell video, and you had referenced in a different video. Oh, I know what it was, because we haven't even got to the whole hate speech thing yet.
yeah,
But
that's all right.
you had a video talking about that, where you referenced having taken down the Ben the Baptist video,
Yeah.
and that piqued my interest. So when you were able to put everything back, I was like, oh, I got to check out this Ben dude. And I'm like, holy fuck, he's worse than Powell.
Yeah, worse than Powell.
How do you get to that level? Like,
you know what? The thing about Ben was, like, you can see the internal rage underneath it.
yes.
It's so evident, like, and it's
Yes.
scary. Like, it actually scared me a little bit. Like, listening to, I could just see the anger that is there for some reason, and talking to him, like, he's kind of like the perfect mix of what I like on my channel, right?
Yeah.
Ignorance mixed with arrogance, and then it gives me, then I could be a little bit tougher on you. Then I can be like, well, now you're giving me justification to really ask you tough questions.
He was an arrogant fucker.
He was. And then, like, and he was so, like, because you got to think at the very beginning of that conversation with Ben, because, okay, well, keep in mind, for the audience, just to let you know, before Ben came on my channel, he wrote me an email and says, hey, you can be as mean to me as you want. Please just don't use bad language. And I was like, you know what? I curse like a sailor on my channel, but I was like, but I'm going to be polite. I'm going to be like, you know what? I'll try to honor your request and not try to curse. So yeah, no worries. No, not a problem. And he did. He came on. I wasn't cursing. And then it got to a part where he basically tried to use derogatory words for gay people, calling gays homos. And I politely asked him, was like, listen, I'd like you not to use that word on my channel. I was like, you've asked me not to use bad language. I don't want to. You're intentionally trying to make people angry and be mean to them.
Yeah. Intentionally hurt people. And he's like, well, yeah.
And like, he admitted to it. And I think, like, I don't think he was really ready for the way I was going to question him, is what the problem was. I think he's used to very traditional atheist arguments, and I don't like to do that. I like to surprise them. The kind of questions I have.
Well, and that brings up a good point. That's the thing. They have this straw man of what an atheist is.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Then they run into somebody like you who does not fit their paradigm.
Yes, that's true.
And it's like, I mean, like, I've actually had people, I have had a blog for quite a few years, and Deb and I have been doing this almost 4 years now, but I've had shows on other platforms where I've had to self-censor myself because I cuss like a sailor. I don't really give a shit.
We like sailor.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, if you're that offended by my language that you can't even address my argument, then we have a problem.
Yeah.
And it's just like, but
it's an excuse, because I've had that before too. It's like, oh, if you're gonna swear, then you're not worth talking to. I'm like, fuck you. Like, you're just a coward about it.
Well, you know what it really is, and I'll tell you. It's even more deceptive than you're gonna think, right?
Okay.
So there's two things about the email that he written. One, he says you can be as mean to me as possible, as you'd like.
Yes.
mm-hmm.
Because it's the victim complex. They want to be persecuted. And then it looks really good if they take that clip and they put it on his channel, and they can cut out all the other stuff, and it makes me look like I was just being mean to him, right? But I knew that's what his game was when I saw that. And the second part about that is that he also, kind of for the same reason, he wanted to put it on his channel. And if he can't put it on his channel, like this Christian channel, if there's all these curse words in it, Wolfbitin got pissed off about the same thing.
Yes.
Because, and he was so mad because I was like, then I purposely, I tried to curse as much as humanly possible in that video.
Yeah, I would too.
But you know, yeah.
Didn't want to come on my channel because I don't have any censorship on my channel too.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that, like, I don't know, it cracks me up. Yeah, the cursing thing is always amazing with me. Like, they're willing to just, like, they're willing to, like, oh yeah, God kills babies and wants human beings to kill babies, but don't say the word fuck in front of them, right? Yeah. They're willing to, like, jump on all these swords. Like, oh yeah, execute gay people, execute adulterers, execute disobedient children. But did you say this? Did you say that? Like, what? Like, it's like,
well, it's just like,
where's your morality at here?
You can't say asshole.
Yeah.
I was in the crazy group, and you might have saw this stuff, and this one dude is like, "Oh, I'm leaving the channel. I'm so against all the the bigotry and hatred from atheists, you fucking homos." Well, he didn't say fucking, but he goes, "You homos," and I'm like, someone goes, "Hatred and bigotry," and you use a term like homos.
Like, oh, the irony.
Yeah, it's like they want us to act up to their standards, and they don't even meet them themselves.
Nope.
Yeah,
it's like
they're so they're angry. Like, it depends on who it is, right? Like, someone like Ben, like he's just honestly, in my opinion, a monster. Like, I can't describe it in any way. The anger that I saw underneath, and then if you didn't get a chance to actually see what he did on his channel, he went on his channel and basically tried to get everybody not to watch it.
I did. He's like, "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. I should have known better. And he's just a reprobate and blah blah blah."
He called me a psychopath at one point. He's like, "He's a psychopath."
Well, he calls
that comes from Anderson, because if you listen to any of his sermons, and I've listened to quite a few, most of your 1611 King James only people, if you listen to their preaching or their sermons or their biblical interpretations, one thing you'll notice, you'll very, very rarely see the message of Christ.
And
everything is fire and brimstone from the Old Testament. I did a string of Anderson's sermons, and I know Ben also has a connection to Anderson, where I did 15 sermons I had dissected. And he mentions Christ 1 time and Paul 3 times. Okay, in over 15 hours of sermons. Everything else was Old Testament or Revelation.
Oh, but that stuff is, doesn't count, doesn't it? Because that's
and it's just like.
But Matt doesn't eat pork. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, it did surprise me that he didn't. But he went for all the other Levitical laws too. I think there were ones he didn't know, which was odd for being a preacher. Which caught me off guard.
Really didn't seem to know the scripture. Well, actually, no one that I've seen on your channel really seemed to.
Rarely. It's very rare that I get someone who doesn't.
But I would love to see you do at some point, just because it's a favorite of mine. Ask one of them what the significance of Ezekiel 23:20 is.
Ezekiel 23:20? I gotta look that one up. I don't remember what that is.
Cite it for you. And she lusted after her lovers, whose members were like that of horses or donkeys, and whose emissions were like that of horses.
Oh, yeah, you know what? Next time, that's getting asked.
That's my favorite verse. Like, you know how in the Gideon Bible, they have a thing in the front where it's like, if you feel afraid, go to this verse. If you're lonely, go to this verse. Yeah. At the bottom, I say, for a good time, read Ezekiel 23:20.
Oh my God!
That's what I do in hotels now.
So sometimes when I can't get someone to come on my channel, I'll go on there just so I can do commentary, and then I can put the video up on mine. Yep. And there's this guy, his name's Cale Beverly. It's like it's one of the last ones. It's a black dude preacher on.
I saw it. I haven't watched it yet.
First of all, he's one of the most dishonest people you'll ever listen to. I mean, just like, first of all, started live streaming without telling me because I was off air. And then I was literally talking about where I live. And I mean, luckily, like literally I was like, because I live in Orlando, Florida, near Disney World. I've already said it online, but he didn't know that. And luckily I wasn't saying anything too personal or anything, but he started live, didn't even acknowledge we were live at any point to tell me. Luckily I looked up and saw, and then I snuck in a verse on him because he was like, he wrote me for a Bible study. I was like, okay, we'll do a Bible study on your channel. And I went to a verse from Deuteronomy where God says you can go in, take all the women in the village, kidnap the children. And I was like, what's going on here? He's like, what do you mean what's going on here? He didn't even want to answer, tell me about it after just asking him for a Bible study just 2 minutes ago.
Several of them where you've brought that up and you're like, just explain to me what's happening here. And they're like, nope, not doing it.
No.
That's God's thing. Just, he's doing whatever. Yeah.
I learned that it's a better tactic too. right? Because what will happen is if you try to like tell them what's going on in there, then they can make an argument like you misunderstand what's going. But
Right.
instead of if you're just like, what's happening here? And just, I think that's a good way to get them, and I do hope that it does change people's minds every once in a while. I'll be honest with you. I do think it gets to people.
To at some point. It does. But I mean, oh, and I love the one with what was his name? The guy who had to bring his friend Tim along.
Oh, that was the new one. Those guys, that was.
I was like,
feel bad for the audience.
It's Dumb and Dumber, the debate.
Like, well, they both. I really thought they were trolls at first, but I went back and looked. They have legit channels. Like they're just on preaching, and I mean, they couldn't even pronounce the name of the Bible books.
I know.
I thought it was like the first dude. I thought it was a speech impediment. I didn't want to make fun of him. I was like, maybe it's a speech impediment or something. I'm not going to make fun of somebody for that. But then I realized he's not mispronouncing anything else. Like it's just the Bible books that he can't. And it's because they just don't know them. I don't think they go to church. I bet you they wouldn't do any of that stuff.
You asked them, the one guy had been a Christian for 2 years and the other one had been for like a year and a half. And I'm like, you don't know shit, man.
Oh, man. When you tell me as a Christian, you've been a Christian for over a year and you haven't taken the time to read the Bible, something's wrong. Like, I'm sorry. Well, like, it's your God's holy word. If you believe in it, why would you not want to read every word of it as quickly as possible?
When I was a Christian, I got told, like we had quote Bible study and we got told what to read and what to interpret it as.
True.
They didn't say just go read the Bible.
My favorite one in regards to that is, even though I am an atheist, I still quote study the Bible. I have been studying the Bible now probably well over 30 years. Okay. But according to some, not all, I don't know anything about the Bible.
Yeah.
Which boils down to Deb and Mike's favorite line. We don't have the discernment of the Holy Spirit, but yet the Bible is supposed to be so simple, a 5-year-old could understand it.
Shit,
or so most missionaries say.
You're supposed to, and there's been a couple of guys have said that to you, Skylar's like, well, you just can't understand it because you don't believe it. It's like, oh, so I have to believe it before. So how am I supposed to arrive at believing it if I don't have what's there to get me to believe it? I just
oh, it's just utter nonsense. I don't even know that they think through what they're saying sometimes.
They don't. And when you pin them down and they're like, God, mysterious ways. Yeah.
It was the best. I think there's a moment the second time I talked with Wolfbitin where there was this long dead pause of crickets when I think I got him on "Is it always wrong to kill babies" or something, and he was like awkward dead silence, and then it was so bad. I should have took just that, but no, because somebody else had taken the clip and put it up and was like and did a joke with it, but I'm like, this is fucking hilarious.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because we had Michael Wiseman on a couple weeks ago, and he has a channel called Deb help me.
The Bible says what?
Yeah, the Bible says, and his
podcast as opposed to a YouTube channel, but he does what you do, except he will research churches and call up pastors directly and be like, hey, can I talk to you? I have some questions about the Bible.
I always feel bad for them.
but I find it interesting that you also in some of your clips, your videos have focused in on the killing of innocent children. Yeah. And like Michael, you have yet to have anybody be able to properly counter that one.
Yep, because he does very much the same thing as killing children, and what was his other one? Oh, slavery. I think he likes as well. Oh,
two really clear ones in the Bible is what it is. It's so easy to point to scripture for those.
Was the one guy who said that it wasn't that it was slavery, but it was like having a job because
Jesus is Lord. Is who it is.
who has trolled our chat before. I'm
He
kind of
is-
disappointed he's not here, but
He is awful. Let me tell you, I believe he is a troll. I don't even know if he's really Christian, to be honest with you, at this point, because
Okay.
he's too good at it. Like, he's so good at it, and he keeps trying to get back on my channel. And I'll give him credit because he has the stuff that he has had to make up on the spot in order to justify things. Like, he basically keeps arguing that all the genocide in the Bible, like any of the killing the Amalekites, Canaanites, all these groups of people, is because there was some kind of like sexually transmitted plague that was going on.
Yes.
And
at least it's not Nephilim.
it's not, no. Yeah, and I'm like, this is not biblical.
From the Nephilim. He did
Oh, shut up!
because he said it was because the STD came from them having sex with giants, didn't he? I thought that's what he said.
I was gonna, because that's usually the line that comes out, is that the Amalekites, the Goliath, his clan, they're all giants, or the Rephaim, and it all ties back to the whole Nephilim thing. And it's like,
I tell you, that guy was, hey, I like how you called him Jesus. He didn't seem to like that very much.
No, he's not going to troll me by getting you to try to like say, Jesus is Lord all the time.
Like, what's your name? Jesus is Lord.
And I even asked him that.
That's like those people that go to Starbucks and tell them, like, Jesus.
Fierstein.
Yeah.
Josh Fierstein. I think he still does it.
That's the same kind of shit, but I like that.
I told him before we went on air too. I was like, "What do you want me to call you?" And he's like, "Jesus is Lord." And I'm like, "Dude, come on, man, don't do this. I'm certainly not gonna do it." And then I like the whole time I just called him Jesus. I thought it was funnier to say it that way. Yeah, he's a trip though. He how do I even explain him? Like I brought him on I had Emperor Atheists come on here too with him, and that was pretty entertaining. I didn't really debate as much. I ended up kicking him at the end. What happens is if you're really a bad person, like I consider you a dishonest prick, basically, you're gonna get told to eat a bag of dicks, and then you're gonna get kicked out of this. You're gonna get kicked out of the channel.
In fact, I don't know if you noticed, I wore my glory hole shirt just for you.
That's great. Man, I don't like to. I feel bad when I do it, but like I feel like it's for the people who've been true douchebags the whole entire hangout and been dishonest. Yeah. He was one of the people who lied for Jesus, and so did those other guys the other night. And Cal Beverly all lied for Jesus within a hangout.
Yep,
it blows my mind. First of all, why are you this dumb to think you're going to lie on a hangout and it's video recorded and live streamed that I'm not going to catch it? Like both times.
Like, did they think people are too stupid to do like rewind and?
It's crazy.
Hey, look, here's that thing you said.
Jesus had said something. He was like, "Oh, like talking about bringing my kids to Planned Parenthood," and I was like, "Dude, what are you talking about?" And he's like, "No, I said the government. People like," and I was like, "Okay." Went back, replayed it. He obviously said me, right? Yeah. This Cal Beverly guy, I got on there. And he started asking me about. He's like, "You're probably trying to become a preacher to make money and do all this kind of stuff."
I did watch that one.
Yeah. And then I was like, "What?" He's like, "No." He's like, "I didn't say you. I was saying like the industry or like." I'm like, okay. I'm like, that sounds really weird. And then these kids with the megalodon on the.
Yes, that was funny too. So was the megalodon on the ark? Yeah, it was.
Dude, you know how often that works? Like, I ask people if there are megalodons on the ark because they don't know one is, and they just like, hey, yeah, every animal. Like anything. Like, and then he said it was an animal, which was kind of funny. Calling him.
Yes, I did watch that.
Holy shit, man.
It's kind of sad. They start to sort of run together after a while.
Oh, it's terrible.
Well, and that's something. That they're all, like Deb said, they're all running together.
Because they all say the same stupid shit.
They say it's like, seriously?
That's true.
It's like,
if you ever want to have some fun sometime, you should try a Muslim out. Those are fun.
I've talked to one Muslim in my whole YouTube, and it wasn't on my channel, it was on somebody else's, but I think the clip is still on my channel. I'll have to look. If not, I'll try to share it tonight or something later. I
haven't been able to get any to debate me live. In fact, Kyle from Non Sequitur, he's trying to find one for me to talk to on Non Sequitur.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
And it's been like a month he's been trying to find one.
No, I don't think it's so. You could probably, you probably have to find. There's a lot of Muslims in the UK community that tend to debate a lot, because it's a much more. It's kind of like it's like their version of Christianity in Europe, basically. Like they're the ones a little bit more extreme over there.
Yes.
And then here we get all the southern, like the southern evangelical Christians.
I've sort of made Islam my thing, so like I do most of my debating on Facebook, but I've been able to interact with quite a lot of Muslims that way. Like they'll talk to me on text, right? But they won't come on my channel. But it's all the same apologetics. It's just slightly different flavor.
They just listen to each other's channels is the problem. They just listen to the same people over and over again, and not even good like arguments. At least if you got some. I'm trying to think. Like I actually used to like C.S. Lewis was somebody when I was a Christian I liked. I thought like the Screw Tape Letters book was really good when I read it. I liked a lot. I think I liked Mere Christianity a lot. I mean, but the guy was he was very poetic too. C.S. Lewis. But like at least those guys like could, I don't know, make some type of arguments. Like these guys are just this thing where you're just like, oh, it's either hell or heaven. Which one are you gonna choose? That's not like really compelling at all to threaten me with hell, you know.
I like to say, why don't you threaten me with being mauled by the Easter Bunny while you're at it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's like I've always said is that there is nothing new in apologetics. It is the same arguments over and over and over again. It's just kind of like the junkyard fallacy that gets rebranded as like it's a computer code or
it's a name something complex.
Yeah. And the thing is with apologetics, I mean, we were literally, I don't know about you, Skylar, but when I was in school, we literally learned these arguments. Well, if atheist X says this, you say this. If he says this, you say this. This comes from C.S. Lewis, or back then it was the Kalam argument. I learned it pre-Lane Craig and post-Lane Craig. He was an adjunct professor at my college, so I actually learned it right from the horse's mouth. And then Plantinga was very popular when I was in school. Alvin Plantinga, for people that aren't aware. But it was the same thing over and over. And it's like, even as I was coming out of religion, I started noticing this. And I remember even in school, before I even began questioning, I got kicked out of my apologetics class twice. Same professor. He was also my advisor. Or basically asking in class, why the fuck are we learning this shit? Why does our, quote, faith need defending?
Yeah.
You know, I don't go for the atheist line. Oh, you're making an apology. No, it's defense. And it's like, especially since in my class on ministry and on missionary work, we were taught that, the Bible is so easy. A 5-year-old can read it, that you just hand them the Bible, you say a few words and walk away. So it's like Deb said, why do we need the Holy Spirit to discern what we're learning and reading? It's just but it's the same. Yep. But I can listen to you. I can listen to, Logic, or I can listen to any of the other numerous counter apologetics people on YouTube or podcasts, and I learn something new every day, a different way of approaching things.
Yeah, because everybody, even though it's the same crap, different people approach it different ways to debunk it, and that's useful because you're going to come across all manner of theists who, this argument may not work on that one, but maybe this other argument might have some, But I what you're saying about getting a 5-year-old to read the Bible, I'm like, yeah, get him to read a King James version and see how confused the poor kid gets.
Yeah.
Skylar, I'm doing a podcast where I'm reading the Quran, so you don't have to. And I picked the version that had the least amount of criticism from Muslims. I mean, there's always somebody who's like, it's not in Arabic, you don't understand it, blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But this it's the Pickthall translation. This guy by the name of Pickthall, he was an Englishman who converted over. But being that he was an Englishman, he decided that, you know, if I'm going to translate the Quran, it has to sound religious. So he translated it in King James English.
Oh my gosh.
That is a hellish thing to read, let me tell you.
I tried to read the Quran once. It's really difficult to read. It's a very dry book, and the way it's meant to be written. I mean, it is probably more meant to be read in Arabic because it's more like poetry in Arabic, is what I hear.
Yeah, it's and so the traditions of the period was oral poetry was one of the highest revered art forms at the time, and a lot of history was transmitted through oral poetry like that. So, I mean, and let's be frank, Muhammad probably wrote that shit while he got high in a cave somewhere. And well, I think it was Beth who suggested it might have been something like the Oracle at Delphi. You know, he went to go meditate in this cave, and there's some kind of gases accumulating in there that got him all fucked up, and he came up with all this weird ass stuff. But it's so for him to transmit it that way was common, and it wasn't until 20 odd years after his death because what they would do is they would have specific people trained to memorize the oral recitation of the Quran, right? And they had a certain amount of them, and they were fighting a lot of battles with the Quraysh, were the ruling tribe at the time that gave the Muslims a lot of grief because Muhammad, he had been a Quraysh and he was viewed as a defector, kind of whatever. Long drawn out shit. But they had a big battle where they lost a lot of these people who had the Quran memorized. And Abu Bakr, the first successor of Sunni Islam, kind of went, oh shit, maybe we should write this stuff down before, you know, too many people croak. And that's why they finally wrote it down. And it was kind of ridiculous because all of these companions that had learned it from Muhammad, some of them had written, I guess, if there was a difficult part that they struggled with or a part that they found really inspiring or whatever, they might write down, you know, a chapter or a few verses, and they would write it on like a leaf or scribble it on a rock or so. Some poor bastard by the name of Talib had to go around to all the companions and gather up all the bits of rock and leaves and papyrus and whatever shit he could find to put it. And they say it was never corrupted.
It's so interesting. It's one of those religions I don't know much about. And it's one of the reasons I probably haven't debated too many Muslims. Yeah. But it's so fascinating. Like you think about world history, and it's kind of amazing that really what's happened is like, you know, probably the two major religions, Christianity and Islam, like they're just what happened to take off. Like this shit could have been anything. Like we could have been worshiping multiple gods right now, still believing in like been polytheists.
There's still like what 1 billion Hindus that worship like hundreds of gods.
Which is that's such an interesting weird. But I've heard from Hindus though. I've heard it's kind of a mix. Like a lot of it's like they don't really believe it. It's kind of more just ritualistic, I guess, like cultural.
There's a mix. So there are certainly people that do believe it. Some of it leans more towards superstition. There are more atheistic Hindus that, you know, they value the ritualistic, the sort of structure around it. There's a lot of different schools of thought. You know, the ascetics. I always say that wrong. You know, obviously they believe it. Those are the guys that, you know, sit around naked in temples worshiping gods and things like that. You know, they take it really seriously and believe some of it. And it's just, I think it's like an onion. There's all different layers of.
I agree. It's like a complicated thing.
Yeah, it's like there's aspects of it. Like I've got Hindu shit tattooed all over me because I really find value in some of the symbolism. Like Kali here, she's a destroyer of obstacles. And it's a symbol of the strong feminine because there's a story where there was a demon who was ravaging Earth, and all of the other gods and goddesses couldn't kill it because if a drop of its blood hit the ground, it would spring up another version of itself for every drop of blood.
Okay.
So it was constantly, you know, Vishnu would go chop his head off and, you know, 100 more would pop up because of the blood that hit the ground. Kali was the only one who came out and said, I can fix this shit. And she got a bowl and caught all the blood and drank it so that none of it fell to the ground. And she was able to vanquish the demon. And no other god or goddess could do it but Kali. So I like her.
No, it's cool. I like it's so rich. Like it's so many unique stories that come from these religions. I've always been like a big Alan Watts fan, like the philosopher Alan Watts. He's what kept me in deism for a long time. Really interesting guy.
And to me, like, even though I'm very much there's definitely no God, I can see why the deist perspective makes sense. And I could even see myself into, like, if we discovered that there were other life forms in the universe that had way more abilities than we do, putting a deistic sort of spin on that, you know what I mean?
Sure.
I could see that, but I would not call that a god.
No, it's, you know what it is? That's really what it is. Is like, I think when most time when we call ourselves atheists, we're really talking about like a god similar to like the God of Abraham and like the Judaism, Islam, and those, like an actual kind of like being with thoughts, minds, that's controlling everything and, you know, doing whatever the fuck it pleases.
What I say is, I know that no god that has ever been knowingly conceived of currently can exist.
Yes. Yeah, that's about, I think, a good way to think about it.
Yeah, that's how I think of it. Now, what if somebody else wants to call something else a god? I might dispute that, but I'm not going to say that such and such a thing doesn't exist. I don't see that as a god, and I certainly wouldn't worship it. No,
that's true. Yeah, I just don't get how people really think that there's just some god up there just watching you at all times, you know, judging you, and it's incredible.
What I don't get too, because they always say, well, you know, he's always been there, and he got around, he just decided to create shit and fuck with us forever. Well, if he's been around forever, what the hell was he doing with himself before that? Like, you think he'd get a little bored after, you know, several millennia, eons, whatever.
Well, and let me tell you too, like, if there really is a God that's up there like the God described in the Bible, we're all in a lot of trouble. Like, it's not going to be very pleasant when we die. And I'm not talking about just hell, like any kind of God-like being that would like do the things that he does and allow the things that he allows. I think it's going to be much scarier than you would imagine.
It's like I've in what Deb and I call the crazy group. It's an online debate group. It's not even so much whether God exists or does not exist, because I could give two shits. It doesn't matter to me. But the reason I don't believe in specifically the God of the Bible or the Abrahamic God is, if you look at the Bible, like you said, what's presented is not worthy of my worship.
Ew. Like the only reason anybody would worship that is just out of fear and coercion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You would, and when in the first chapter of the first book, I think it's the first chapter, but within the first couple pages of the first book of the Bible, you're told that if you don't worship me properly, I'm going to condemn you to eternal damnation.
Yeah.
That's coercion. It's like my dad, using my dad as an example, telling me when I was in high school that if I don't get an A on a paper, he's going to paddle my ass, and the paper, and he paddles my ass anyways.
Mm.
It's like you're not. It's not willful worship. It's forcing somebody to worship.
And yet, yes, always argue that, well, God doesn't want a mindless robot, so he wants you to choose it. I'm like, that's not a choice.
Yeah, I mean, then they bring in, and you might run into this in some of your conversations, and I'd be curious to your thoughts on this, but the whole concept of free will, it's like, well, you have free will to choose God or not. It's like, no, I don't. It's like, where is their free will when he has already condemned you to death if you don't choose the right answer?
Not just death, eternal torture.
Yeah.
You know what I like to do with free will is I talk about it's not really, you have to get them to define it first, and they're just going to basically most of the time say something about choices. You have the choice to choose God or not choose God. But the thing is, how do you say this? When you look at the Garden of Eden and what's going on here, right? And it talks about, because that's really where it all gets started, is with Adam and Eve, disobeying God by eating from the tree of knowledge, good and evil. And they didn't, and well, think about all the layers that's happening, right? So you have this tree that God didn't need to put there in the first place, right? This tree doesn't need to exist, right? Human beings still have choice, right? Tree being there and tree not being there, they still have free will at this point, right? All right, let's leave the tree there for a second. We'll be like, okay, well, he put the tree there for whatever other reason he told them not to eat it. Oh, wait a minute. Here's that serpent over here that God, for some reason, just decided to leave with his children that he loved and didn't want any harm to come to or anything like that. And then, oh, yeah, that serpent goes and tricks them, right? All right, so let's leave that alone. All right, now, so, all right, for some reason, God had the tree there. He chose that the serpent needed to be there for whatever reason needed to be there, right? Before God even planned all this out, he knew it was going to happen. Like, he knew that if you put a tree there, if you put the serpent there, they would eat from it, and then, they would fall, right? All right, so, okay. All right, so let's go one more step further. We're going to go to a fourth problem or third or fourth problem with this, right? Okay, then I'm like, all right. Okay, so you gave him free will, right? You put a tree there for whatever reason. Satan's there because whatever reason too. You knew ahead of time that they would eat from the tree and they would fall. So they were going to do that anyways. But then you decided as God to create these repercussions, that if they chose to do this,
yes,
all these repercussions happen. And then and that's, we're talking about sickness in the world, disease, death is now in the world. And then I'm going to just give you one more. We'll throw one more on top. Another problem with this whole story, just to really kind of put the icing on the cake, is then this sinful nature somehow every human being afterwards responsible for. And now the sin nature is passed down. And the only way we can solve this problem, right, is if a savior comes around 2,000 years. But then think about all the shit that goes down in order to get that savior there, right? Yeah. Genocide, floods, for guys, circumcision. We have to get the top of our dicks cut off. Because in order for God, Jesus to come around later, that's got to happen.
Always baffled me. So God made penises. If he didn't want there to be a foreskin, why the fuck did he put it there in the first place?
It's insanity. Like every level of it. And it all had to happen in order for Jesus to get here and die on a cross, when literally all God could have done, God could have literally, I always use the analogy, he could have just said, all I need to do to atone for sin and fix the whole problem is just wave, abracadabra. It's fucking done.
What Michael was saying when we were talking to him, he said, well, one of the things he brings up with his pastors he debates is, why can't God forgive people without killing something?
Yeah.
Because in the Old Testament, you got to go kill animals, and then oh well, you don't have to do that because Jesus. Well, you still had to kill something.
Yeah.
Maybe you only did it once, but you still had to kill something to forgive you. Like why? Why? If he makes up the rules, that seems pretty stupid. Unless if you like killing things, then it might make sense.
Yeah, and that's true. I don't get it. It's a whole. I don't know how people even buy into it these days, especially if you become a Christian later in life. I don't know how.
Yeah, we were raised with it, and I was indoctrinated for a number of years too. And well, actually, I remember being like 5 or 6 years old, and like my mother's parents were pretty religious, and they like to say grace over meals and whatnot. And I can remember thinking to myself, "This is stupid," and singing kid songs in my head so I didn't have to listen to the prayer. But I got sent to vacation Bible school when I was about 7 or 8 years old, and they told me about hell and scared the living shit out of me. And that's whoa, I better believe in Jesus, man. And I made sure I did the sinner's prayer and all that shit. And I did it twice for good measure, just to be sure,
You got to make sure you don't want to lose out on that salvation.
I was wondering when I was listening to Ben whether he would say I was saved or not, because
that was another douchebag move by that guy. Like,
yes.
the only reason he did that was so he could discredit me. That was it. It wasn't that he really cared whether I was saved or not. He wanted to be able to be like, I'm a reprobate, because I can't be a reprobate and saved at the same time. So basically, he just needed to prove that I wasn't saved, and then he could make the argument I'm a reprobate, and then everything, no matter what I said, would be just evil, awful.
That seems to be the favorite tactic when when push comes to shove, is that they're not a true Christian, and it's like. I got into a discussion a couple of weeks ago, and they tried to pull this, and I said they were basically, well, how do you know if someone's a Christian? Because they tell me. Well, how do you know they're telling the truth? And I'm like, well, if you tell me you're a Christian, then you're a Christian.
Yep.
Because
a Christian's not supposed to lie, so
yeah. But then he's like, well, do you consider Mormons Christians? And I said, well, Mormons consider themselves Christians. Well, they're a cult. I said, well, theoretically, yes, they are a cult, but they have some of the doctrines of Christ as the basis for the religion. I said, what denomination are you? And he's like, I don't have a denomination. I said, well, why is that? And it comes down to basically so he can use, there's, true Christian argument. I follow Christ. I said, so you're Jewish.
Yeah.
And he's like, I said, well, you said you follow Christ. Christ never renounced his Judaic roots ever in the New Testament. Where I said, please cite me the verse where he states that he's no longer Jewish. I said, no, you're a Paulinian. I said, you're following the doctrines of Paul, so you're not a true Christian either.
Yep.
And round you go with this argument, because it's like,
well, and the ones
you said, that are like or abomination.
The ones that are like, I don't follow religion, I follow Christ.
So cheesy when they do that.
I know.
Like, come on, you can do better than this.
Yeah, that's
a walking cliche.
Oh, totally. But they just want to do that so you can't pin them down to any specific doctrine, so they can be as shifty and weaselly as they want to be.
Did I tell you, with Matt Powell, he wrote me recently, and
really?
And he was like, hey, I have some free time, I can come back on your show. And at this point, like, I was kind of torn, because at first I was like, I could invite him back on. I was like, it would certainly probably be very popular if I did. I'd get a lot of views for it. But I was like, at this point, I feel like I'm just giving him a platform now.
Yes.
Like, I think we're past that. I think, the first time was I didn't know all his beliefs. I know now what his positions are. There's really nothing that's going to surprise me. It's just going to be more ignorance at best, or maybe a little bit of comedy. And And I was like, I just and basically I wrote him back. I was like, listen, Matt, respectfully, I feel like it's gonna be a platform for you, and I can't have that kind of stuff on my channel. This guy, I don't want to call it hate speech, but just hate, like that kind of like, I don't want him recruiting more people. Yeah, speech that hateful. Yeah.
And the thing with Matt, one thing that I noticed in your initial interview with him was that he's a child. He's fucking 22 years old. Okay, he states that he's a college student, and although I think at one point he said he doesn't consider himself a preacher, but or a minister. He just preaches every now and then, and it's like, dude, you're ignorant. I mean, he knows no science. I mean, from what I understand, he's homeschooled.
Yes,
which is blatantly obvious.
And
I mean,
young Earth creationist.
Yeah, I mean, he has. I mean, his idea of science. You couldn't even discuss anything rationally with him because all his views are so warped by his religiosity that. I mean, he's clearly willfully ignorant in a lot of things.
Matt, I think, isn't the psycho that Ben is.
No, definitely. Yeah, I agree.
Matt has been very heavily indoctrinated, and I think that he really believes what he believes is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's at that age.
Yeah, and I think that he really and truly believes that he's being a good person that way, which is why he's like, well, we should humanely execute people. No, that's not.
Yeah, he doesn't understand the contradiction.
Remember when we had Wyatt Mikus on?
Oh, Wyatt Mikus, yes.
It's like, he's another child man.
He's like, what, maybe 20, and he was a follower of Hovind.
Yeah, he still is.
On to debate a friend of ours. And again, he was just so incredibly naive, and Hovind was just, had him wrapped around his little finger.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sad, really, because, I mean, he seemed like a nice enough kid, but he's been warped by these assholes that do that. That's what they do, is they take naive minds and warp them to their now. But Ben, I think, is flat out.
No, there's something underneath there that's not right.
Well, and our Matt in the chat here had said that Ben is evil.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think Ben is an evil son of a bitch, and I think and that was the thing, is even in the letter he wrote me, he was like, he said something else about gay people, but it was just in poor taste. But I don't think he even realizes how offensive what he's saying is. I think
basically to people like Ben. To some degree, Matt, and being that they're both Anderson acolytes.
Yeah.
If you listen to Anderson's speech or sermons, that's where the hate's coming from. And it's always been my presupposition that if you really delve into some of his sermons, he gives little glimpses, and even some of his interviews he's done. Something happened when he was 18 years old to make him the way he is. And as I said, they're fire and brimstone preachers. They don't see the good in people.
Yeah.
To them, people suck.
People are talking beds of sin.
Yeah, and that's basically that's the mindset they approach. And whatever happened to Steven Anderson, I don't know. I have my ideas, but I'm not going to say them publicly. I think when you get that type of mindset, and then you basically church plan it out to people like Ben and them, the hatred, Ben connects to that because maybe Ben had a similar situation happen to him, and he has justification for his hate based within the Old Testament.
Mm.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22. It's just like
you said, you could sense the anger from Ben.
Yeah.
And he was reveling in the fact that he might be hurting someone with his rhetoric.
Yeah.
Like when you were saying, you know, please don't use the word homo on my channel, he's like, oh, well, can I use this word or that word? And then he ended up with, how about animals? Like,
yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
and that goes, not to get political, but that goes if you listen to Trump's speeches. That is a fascist Nazi tactic. It's a dehumanizing tactic, and that at the root of fire and brimstone type preachers, that is the root of their quote.
Well, and that's why he had to reduce you to a label, Skylar. You're reprobate. He had to reduce you to that label because he couldn't see you as a nice, pleasant person to talk to anymore, because that would mean he had to give you respect and not act like a douchebag. So he had to reduce you to, well, see, he's a reprobate. Now I can do whatever I want to him.
Yep. Yeah, he was an interesting character, to say the least. And he was one of the people who reached out to me. Like, I didn't even reach out to him. He reached out to me to come on my channel, and it's torn. You know, like, so like I said, Matt Powell's never coming on my channel again. Like, that's not going to happen. Ben won't come back. He ain't coming back. You know,
if he had to apologize to his followers.
Well, yeah, and on that, like, there were Christians, like they still hated me. They were still like, well, this guy's an asshole. But like, you did terrible, like telling him, like multiple people in his chat section were like, you were not prepared for this. I don't know what he thought he like. You know, can I tell you something that never makes sense to me? Is like, why would you not watch a couple of my debates before coming on here?
Exactly.
I don't,
because God is behind the words I speak, and I don't. It's just like, okay, going back to Wyatt Mickus, this debate was scheduled. Okay, he knew exactly when the debate was.
He knew what we told him the topic was.
Yeah, hold on. He comes on, well, I'm not prepared. I didn't know what the topic was. I find out after the fact that he was fucking at Hoven's compound, didn't get back till that morning of the day of the show. And he's just like saying, well, I didn't know what the topic was. I didn't know how to prepare. It's like, no, dude. And I wanted to call him out right then and there and say, dude, you're fucking lying. You were with Kent Hoven. Here's a photograph you posted.
I all fucking weekend.
Yeah.
But
I think what it is that they don't think they have to quote prepare, because everything they say is perfect.
He's righteous, so it'll be fine. But he was horribly unprepared. And I mean, our friend Dave that we got him to who wanted to debate Wyatt. I mean, Dave is a formidable opponent. The man is brilliant, and he's very, very good at debating, and he knows his shit. He's studied theology as well. And Wyatt was, oh, I know my theology, blah, blah, blah. Well, he didn't know a fucking thing, and he didn't research anything, and he didn't have any references or anything. Oh, speaking of references, who was the guy who was bitching that you didn't have any references for something? Oh,
it wasn't True and Pierce, was it? Was it? No.
No, I haven't seen any with him.
No, it's a disaster. Like, those are just
me. A relatively new one. Well, I'm part of the great debate community, so I've heard all kinds of stories about him. But
it's a nasty little human being. But anyways, references.
This guy. Oh, what the hell? I watched about 6 or 7 of your videos, so they kind of
it's kind of blended. It wasn't Wolfbitin when he said about a theological degree, asking if I don't know.
No, because I'm familiar with Wolfbitin and his bullshit. Because, like what you said, why would you debate something with buddy without watching their show? I went to Wolfbitin's channel, and that's why I'm like, number one, I ain't coming on your channel. You're coming on mine. And number two, I ain't debating evolution because you don't know shit.
That's what I told him too. I wasn't debating evolution. I'm like, we're not going to play this game where you get to. At least I'll be honest. I'm not as well versed in science and that kind of stuff.
I'm not
my thing.
No, me neither. Like I can tell you the very, very, very basics of evolution. Yeah. Like change over time, you know, whatever mutation is a benefit carries on due to the environment, blah, blah, blah. But Wolfbitin, he's got an arsenal of copy pasta from creationist bullshit that sounds really good.
Yes.
And he pulls it out and then just talks over you. So, in fact,
Gish Gallows.
But I watched one video on his channel, and he had this woman on who was a theologian, but she was not the right kind of theology. So, and at the beginning of the video, he had her list her credentials. And she was like, you know, I have a master's in this, a PhD in this. And, you know, she had studied the original Greek text. She was a hell of a theologian. She had studied a lot of shit. And, you know, primary sources she had studied. And so they start discussing stuff, and she cited a primary source. And he's like, well, where's your proof? Because she didn't have a copy of said primary source to like show him a picture of it. He was like, oh, you don't have any proof. And she's like, but I have multiple degrees and I've studied. Oh, well, that's not proof. And I'm like, well, why did you have her cite all of her credentials at the beginning of the fucking debate? If that's, you know,
just such dishonesty.
It is. It's total dishonesty. But before we got about 20 minutes or no, about 40 minutes left ish. But I wanted to get in because we talked about quote hate speech earlier. You had a bit of a eventful. Well, actually, it was Monday that you had your video nuked. Right?
Yeah, I think it was only a couple days ago. It was like last Monday, and basically what YouTube decided was I guess through their audio bot that caught certain words, decided to flag my video conversation with Matt Powell for promoting hate speech.
Do you think it was auto, or do you think somebody might have done it?
Oh no, yeah, well, yeah, I think I think so. Here's that. Someone did flag it initially, but I think what happens because I put in for an appeal right away. I was like, no, we're gonna appeal this, and then the person, I don't think they really did a live appeal. And I mean, you gotta think like these people at YouTube or whoever's getting paid to do this to watch it, right? Yeah. It's a 2-hour conversation, 2 hours of their day where they had been sat just seriously watching this one video. I think basically a bot picked up some words in certain areas of the video. The person went to that part of the video, understood no context of what was going on. I mean, this is all theory. I don't know what really happened. All I know is that it did get flagged. YouTube denied my appeal initially. And then when we got some public support behind it, fighting YouTube, it kind of changed things around, it seemed like.
Mr. Richard Dawkins.
That was pretty crazy. Like I was in shock when I saw Richard Dawkins had posted this. Awesome. I was literally going into work, and it drove me crazy because I had to work. Like I couldn't be on my social media, like going on YouTube, Google Plus, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this is happening. And I suck at Twitter. I'm finally getting to use Twitter, so like it's even like another layer on top of it. But it was crazy. It was a whole crazy incident. And then like, you know, I messaged YouTube through Twitter, and everyone kept tagging it. And then of course Richard Dawkins posted it. And also thanks to those news those blogger sites, Dead State, because I'd written to them and told them what had happened. And I was like, listen, you guys had done a story originally about, you know, my conversation with Matt Powell and help this video kind of go viral. And what I did was I was like, hey, I was just to let you know this is what's going on. I don't know if there's any ways you guys can help, but and he's like, what? And he's like, that happened? And I was like, yeah. And I showed him some stuff, and I told him what was going on, and he wrote a story for Dead State. And then I took that story and I put it on Reddit, and it went to the front page of Our Atheism with like 24,000 upvotes, which is the highest by far I've ever gotten anything on Reddit. Some brutal bastards over there at Reddit. And Oh, they give me shit all the time for posting my own content on our atheism. Man, I get so much shit. Oh, they are. I'm like, look. I told them one time, I was like, look, motherfuckers. At least I'm not posting another Christopher Hitchens video on here. Like, how many times are we gonna watch this? Like, I'm at least creating content.
I don't do Reddit. I used to read it fairly regularly, and I just like there's too many fucking rules now.
It's true.
I prefer rule-free zones.
Yeah, I agree. But don't get me wrong. I gotta give them a lot of love because they did vote me all the way up. And then, of course, I think, and then Pathos decided to write an article. I think right around that same time, and that's the article Richard Dawkins posted. On his channel on Twitter, and yeah, it was crazy. Like, it was just a whole crazy experience. And then the next day, like literally as I'm going to work, they put my channel back on, and then that was right when I was just so super excited. I couldn't even believe it.
Well, I thought it, like, when the news first said that you had been nuked, it was like, for what?
Yeah.
Taking a guy's conversation verbatim. It's not you personally or your channel promoting the hate speech. It's this alleged so-called preacher man, child, spouting it. And it's becoming so normalized. The fact that they even pinged it surprised me. It's like, our president says the exact same shit. We have Anderson, Scott Lively, Peter LaBarbera, Rick Santorum, Rick Perry, Michelle. I mean, they all believe to some degree that homosexuals should be executed or at least segregated. And it's like, that's why I wonder if someone reported it, but your scenario makes sense too.
Yeah.
As far as, they went to just that section and didn't.
I just have to wonder, like, who reports that?
Well, you know what I think too, though, is I think it's just people don't pay attention, right? So first, the video had a stupid amount of downvotes because they just think it's Matt Powell. Like, they think they're downvoting Matt Powell, but it's my channel. Like, I don't know if they got the fact that I'm the guy interviewing him, trying to debate the dude, and like I'm the one fighting against it, and you're downvoting me as a channel. Now it's changed. Now it's starting to kind of get even. Finally,
I have to put this in here, and you're downvoting just when you posted the show, Deb, today.
Yeah.
Do you know we got a dislike 5.5 hours before we even went on air? Someone please explain, how do you dislike a video that hasn't even aired yet? It was like probably about 7 hours ago now. There was one like and one dislike, on a little thumb up, thumb down. I'm thinking, we haven't even done the show yet.
It is. It's either OSA or the INC.
Could be.
We've done a number of shows on Scientology, Skylar. So and we have several ex-Scientologist friends that we talk to. So we figure OSA at least knows who we are.
Yeah.
And then we've also done a show on the Iglesia Ni Cristo out of the Philippines, which is a right fucked up cult, Christian cult, but they're nut. Canada
just heard of them. Yeah.
Canada just took in a refugee who left the church, and we took him in as a refugee because the church was threatening him. So, and we have a friend who used to be in the church, and so we did a show with him, and we had some wacko INC people leaving comments for a bit too. So I'm like, those are our two resident loon factions, so maybe it's one of them.
But I just thought it was funny that someone downvoted our show and we hadn't even aired yet.
You're just that popular, Skylar.
Yeah, and that's the first thing that popped into my head is somebody's disliking it because we're having you on tonight, And it's like they don't even know the context of what our show is going to even be about. Hell, we don't even know what the context of our show is until we go on the air.
Well, and I didn't even title it. Like I titled it Skylar Fiction Talks Debating Ridiculousness.
Yeah.
So I didn't mention Powell or Ben or anybody.
Well, I think I didn't mention Ben, but I think I mentioned Matt, because I took his one quote.
Powell's description. Yeah, he's in the description, but he's not.
Yeah.
Let's be honest, most people are too fucking lazy to read the description.
True. And I come up with some original work on that.
I do too. When I go to other people's videos, I like to read the description, but apparently I'm in the minority.
Yeah, we both are. But yeah, I just thought it was funny. So, and what I think is good too is that the whole debacle with being nuked and everything, I think hopefully will focus the attention of some people on the fact that we have people in the pulpit preaching that people like me need to be executed.
Yeah, it's important, and that was the thing I argue. Like I was saying, is that like if YouTube does this kind of censorship basically, and they keep wanting to go to this extreme, all you're doing is putting these people into hiding, right? They're going to go on other forms of media that allow it, and they're going to be under the radar, and people aren't going to know that they exist. And there's I don't know how many people are out there like Matt. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there, I could tell you probably there's a lot of Christians who just think, being gay is sinful and a bad thing, but may not necessarily dislike gay people. I know it's a weird kind of thing to say.
Oh, but it makes sense. I've met people kind of like that. They're like, well, God says it's bad, so I can't really accept that part of you.
Yeah.
But I can have coffee with you, I guess.
Well, I face it pretty much every day. Not so much as I used to because I don't go out of my apartment much. But it's this whole, I don't agree with what you do, but let's go have coffee. It's a live or let live situation. Yeah. While I don't agree with it in a sense from a scriptural standpoint, because the whole reasoning behind it is wrong, because in Leviticus 18 verses 1-5, it gives you the context of that whole chapter, and it has nothing to do with homosexuality. 21st century homosexuality. It has to do with not practicing cultic shrine prostitution, which I don't think I do. Actually, I can't because I'm asexual, but that's a whole other story. But it's like, I think it's this live and let live attitude where in some regards, okay, it's fine. But I think it also does have a kind of a bad connotation too, because then you run into people, well, I don't see a problem with putting a cross on the side of the road.
Yeah.
But you know how my mind thinks, Deb, so.
Just shout out, hey, hi, Heavy. Glad you could make it. I'm sorry you missed part, but you're here. It's good. And Matt says, why aren't they flagging the people that are doing the hate speech?
Yeah.
That's a good question. Yeah, like, why isn't Ben flagged into fucking next week?
Well, Stephen Anderson, any of your white supremacist groups, there's some channels that have outright hate speech on them, but they're not doing anything. Well, I won't say not doing anything, but don't appear to be doing anything about it.
Yeah. And a lot of YouTube is kind of fucked up, though. And I mean, I follow a couple, I follow a couple of YouTubers that, like, for instance, I know Philip DeFranco talks about it on occasion. And oddly enough, there's a guy, he mainly does gaming stuff, which I never watch, but for some reason, his other stuff, I've seen Boogie 2998.
I like Boogie. Yeah.
I have zero interest in gaming whatsoever. Somehow he ended up in my stuff, and I do watch his personal stuff on occasion. But both of them are heavyweights, and in terms of YouTube subs and whatnot, and both of them, so they have the ear of YouTube, and both of them have been able to make some comments. Not what they're not going to spill the beans, obviously, but they've said enough to where they both think that YouTube is trying. But I mean, it really seems like they're just not. I mean, with the resources they have, I don't understand how they can suck this bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, we've never monetized. We never did. I mean, we have a Patreon, which, oh no, Matt was just saying Boogie just broke his arm. Well, that sucks. But we don't have that many patrons either, but we don't do it for money. I mean, it'd be nice if we got lots of money for doing it. We don't. We never monetize just because the nature of what we do, we figured that we would run into issues like having to get permission from everybody that comes on the show to monetize their face and all that shit. And maybe we did, maybe we don't. I don't know, but we just didn't want the hassle. So we never did, and we would have lost it by now anyway. So, but I see a lot of frustration out there from people that just, they struggle to make a little bit of extra money, and then it just gets yanked out from under them. Or like, even with Non Sequitur and the Great Debate Community, I know their stuff gets demonetized all the time, and they've tried to figure out. And the thing is, it wouldn't be so bad if there was like very clear guidelines as this is exactly what will get you demonetized. Nobody knows.
My Matt Powell video stayed monetized somehow. How on earth it stayed monetized and it got banned, it blows my mind.
Well, and that's the thing with the whole monetization. There's no guidelines. There's nothing to guide you along. And like, I had a chance to syndicate my blog a couple years ago, and part of the reason I decided against it was that when I don't work good on a deadline, the joys of being bipolar. Two, my job doesn't really, even though I have a lot of freedom, sometimes I get called into work at like really crazy hour, and which, you know how that works. But I live above my job, so I get called quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, there's no, I like the freedom that I have to be able to speak about issues that are important to me. And when you start monetizing, you got to start pleasing other people. And it's like, I don't want to do that. I did that for 30-odd years, Mm-mm. Trying to figure out, let's see, which videos or blog posts are going to make everybody happy. And then you run into the copyright issue.
And I think that's what frustrates people on YouTube the most, though, is this not being able to understand what to do to maintain good standing and monetization, because it's literally a crapshoot.
You know what I think the key is that I've learned is like, so I used to not monetize my videos for a long time. I put most of my videos I do monetize now, but like the key to being like, at least what I would see to be successful here on YouTube, and I'm by no means successful yet here on YouTube. I only have like maybe 3,000 subscribers, and but you just make good content and have fun doing what you're doing. And
Exactly.
if it becomes popular enough, the monetization thing won't matter, because you'll either be able to have a successful Patreon, you'll be able to figure out what's going to work. YouTube will work with you once you probably get to that level. Because they're still a business. They still want people watching. And these guys who have the power, who have all those kind of views and things like that, hundreds of thousands of views, like they get a little bit more influence, I think, on what goes up. But, I just try with my channel to have fun, enjoy what I do. I used to actually cut together much more videos back in the day. And I started by doing, I would just go in Hangouts, and there would always used to be Google Hangouts happening. And I started by taking clips of other people debating, and I would put music to them and put title cards, and it was like early days of one of my channel. But it was fun. It was like I could play around, on my computer, have fun, put music up, and boom, it was done. And people liked it. And then as I grew, I was like, well, wait, maybe I should try debating and doing some of this. Because this is kind of fun. Like I want to debate, but I was just a little nervous about doing it. And then I just started going into people's channels, and I would take some of the clips from the channel, put it up on my own, and then eventually, I just was like, fuck this. I should just have people on my channel and do this thing.
It's funny, like we've been doing the show like this for almost 4 years, and we usually get a guest or two. Occasionally, we'll just do shit on our own. But after talking to you and Mike or Michael last show, I'm like, because this is Beyond the Trailer Park channel. I have a Heretic Woman channel that I don't have very much on. I'm like, maybe I should just start trying to lure people to come on. That's my thing, is like, how do I get I can't get them to debate me.
It's hard. That's the hard part, is getting people on.
I will talk to people on Facebook, and I will spend hours back and forth with these people. And yet, the minute I'm like, I have a channel, come on my show. Oh, no, I can't do that.
Well, being one that is not up to live debate, so to speak, it's really hard because, like we were saying, I don't know if it was before we went on or not, about I'm not one to go on someone else's channel. It's not that I don't like being interviewed, but I have a one-track mind. And, I get stuck in a rut. I've come out a little bit, like I will debate on Facebook because I can put more time into the answers. And since, I got sick and my brain doesn't work right anyways. But I think people are afraid to. They're all, the whole keyboard warrior thing. But when push comes to shove, I will defend my point of view. Case in point, like the whole ACA debate, because I am affected by it. And I had a gentleman in my doctor's office saying, "Oh, I don't want to be paying for other people's injury." And I went, I won't say I went off on him, but I basically debated him right then and there in my doctor's office.
Well, I laugh. My favorite one, Skylar, for our 100th show. I had been talking to this guy in Facebook who was like, I should have known. Well, that's kind of prejudicial, but my experience with Nigerians hasn't been the best. Although I do, there are a few Nigerian atheists that I have met, which are cool people. But this was this Nigerian Christian guy who fancied himself a lay preacher. And I'd been talking to him on Facebook, and I was like, well, I forget how it came up, but I was like, dude, I have a channel, come debate me. And I was like, oh, I'll debate this guy for our 100th episode, right? And he's like, oh, well, I'll think about. Oh, I know what it was. And this is one that you might try, Skylar. Our friend Dave came up with this. John 14:14. Ask anything in my name, and it shall be granted.
I do that to show Jesus is lying. They don't.
Yeah,
Christians won't buy it though. They'll just dismiss it.
I know, but that's what I was arguing with this guy. I was like, well, people ask for things in Jesus' name all the time, and it doesn't happen. So that means that the Bible's wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, that can't be. So we were going back and forth with this. I'm like, well, look, why don't you come on my channel and we'll talk about this live? Oh, well, we don't necessarily have a very good signal here, which I absolutely believed them, that they don't necessarily have the best signal for video chat in Nigeria. I totally believed them. But I'm like, well, dude, just pray to Jesus that the Bible's true. It'll happen, right? Well, yeah. Oh, well, perfect. We'll set it up. That God's in your corner. In fact, if all we have to do is set it up, you come on my show, you showing up is proof that God exists because you prayed. You can prove God right on my show. Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. We'll do that. And then, of course, the same day, because he put it publicly on his Facebook page, he asked for all of his friends to pray for him that he'll be able to do this. And I'm thinking, aren't you supposed to be praying to God for the whatever? And then, of course, the day of the show, I couldn't reach him. He wouldn't respond at all, which I knew was going to happen. So we ended up having a bunch of other podcasters come on, and it was a fun show. But, I'm like, dude, all you have to do is pray to God in Jesus' name, and it'll happen, right? You believe that, don't you? Oh, yeah, sure I do. So you might want to try that one sometime.
Make pray, dude. It would be pretty funny. I don't know, man. I hope I can keep getting guests. That's the most difficult part. I hope they keep coming on. Listen, Skylar Fiction Show gmail.com, guys. Come on, just let people know.
If you ever want to send any I don't want to talk to Ben because I'll just go off on his ass.
Oh, you guys could probably get Jesus as Lord in here if you wanted to, but he would be
like I said, he's been in the chat before, but see, we set up our shows ahead of time with a topic and a guest and all that. So we're not gonna just take anybody out of the chat and bring them in for a debate. That's not what we do.
No.
Now, like I say, I might consider doing that over on my Heretic channel, but yeah. In fact, that's where I think I would do from now on. If I was going to do a debate thing, I'd probably go over on the Heretic channel
and do that.
Well, part of the problem with debating out of a chat room, so to speak, is that most of these individuals already have pre-scripted what they want to say.
Yes.
And what you need to do is come off onto a topic that they may not be as strong on. That's why, like, when you wanted, was it Wolfbitin wanted to, that you wanted to have on to debate what constitutes evidence?
Yes.
And he wanted to do evolution. Well, the reason he wanted to do evolution is he has a whole script of Gift Gallop.
Yeah.
And a lot of your online apologists are like that. They have a script that they follow, even in the crazy group.
Yep. Oh, Matt says we can have him on the show. We should do that, Matt. We should. I think so. What? I don't know. I'm not going to debate you though, because I pretty much agree with you. Oh no, but we can figure something out. But you're right. They totally have a script, and if you don't follow the script, they don't know what the hell to do. Mm-hmm. And Muslims are great for that because, like what you said, I forget which one of you said before that they look for, if you're going to say this, then you reply with that. And Muslims, I think they're actually trained to listen for keywords because like Christians are really bad for not knowing what's in the Bible. Muslims are horrible for having no idea what's in the Quran because like the vast majority do not speak Arabic. So even though they can memorize the Quran in Arabic, they have no idea what they're saying. So they only know what some imam teaches them, right? So they have no idea. And one of the things, like you like to focus on, killing kids. When I debate a Muslim, there is a passage in the Muslim Quran that condones sex with children. Like it literally condones sex with children. They'll deny it till they're blue in the face. But if they're honest about what it says, that's what it says. But they're trained that if they see or hear pedophilia in any way, they're trained. Oh, Aisha. And then they start throwing out apologetics as to why Aisha wasn't 6 and she was 20 and all this other shit, right? Mm-hmm. I ain't talking about that. I'm talking about a passage in the Quran. But they're so indoctrinated, like, oh, pedophilia, paste this. They don't even understand that it has nothing to do with what I'm saying. Like it's beyond ridiculous how often that happens.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I see that's something I've got to look into. I really got to look into some of these Quran passages. I've heard that before, that it endorses basically child rape and things like that. It's so disgusting.
It is. It absolutely is. And that's why, like, to me, it doesn't matter what else is in the book, whether anything else is nice or possibly accurate. That right there is enough for me to be like, fuck you, Muhammad. Like,
exactly.
Like, what else do you need to me? And yet I have pinned down Muslims on that, and they don't seem to care. Like, I'm not saying all of them, like, these are, maybe 6 or 8 guys, but still, I've got them pinned down on it to where they can't not admit that that's what that means. And then they're just, well, Allah's the creator. Like when they get to Allah can kill babies or God can kill babies because God's God and whatever he does is right. They get kind of that way with, well, Allah knows what's right and blah, blah, blah. And it just boggles my mind that anyone could set aside that basic immorality or out of fear, basically. Because that's what it boils down to. They're afraid of going to hell, so they think they have to accept anything God does.
Yeah, and they just don't want to give up their book either. They just don't want to be like, if they show something's wrong, if you show something's wrong, they have to kind of like be willing to admit that there's other things probably wrong in there too, and they're not quite willing to jump on that sword yet to give it up.
No, exactly. And I mean, like, the Quran's got lots of other shit in there to go on about as well. In fact, you may have even seen this at some point, Skylar, because they love to use this. There's a verse, Quran 2:256, which says there's no compulsion in religion. So they love to trot that out and say, see, nobody's making you do anything, and Islam would never be forced on anybody because God says there's no compulsion in religion. I'm like, have you read the rest of the book?
Can I interrupt for 1 second? We have a new Supreme Court justice, and his name is Brett Kavanaugh.
Don't they have to have information hearings and shit for that?
Oh, no, they just it's a nomination.
It's a nomination. Well, yeah, sorry. I should have said that. Yeah, he nominated Brett Kavanaugh. He's got pretty good credentials as far as knowledge and shit, but he's very conservative. Although some say that he's a judge's judge. So.
I don't know. Anything, like, I don't know why the Dems didn't try harder to block that shit.
There's no way they could. There's nothing that Democrats can do.
Somebody lock McConnell in a closet for the next 10 years and go from there.
Sadly, from a political standpoint, there was really nothing.
But how? Because they prevented Obama from doing it. How can I don't?
Because they had enough people. We don't have the majority. The Republicans do. So they're short of doing a filibuster, and I don't even think a filibuster would. Now, he still has to go through confirmation hearings and all that stuff.
Well, that's what I thought.
Yeah, they might be able to dawdle on that, but there's really, from what I've read, there's not much the Dems can do other than maybe delay the confirmation in some manner until November. But you're talking at least 3 months.
Well,
yeah, they don't, and they changed the rule for the Senate now. So now they don't need a filibuster proof vote anymore. All they need is 51 votes, basically, to get it, which is it's terrible. So yeah, I mean, they'll get it. This guy will probably go through. It was like, unless they find anything that's like really dirty on him, but it's probably the most likely thing going through.
Some people are putting they're edging their bets with Collins and Murkowski. They're two GOPs that aren't always in line, but
Matt says he was watching the news this morning, and if he is picked, we are screwed.
Yeah, I don't know much about him, so
damn. See, this is like, you guys have your Supreme Courts for life. Ours is only till that they have to retire at 70, 75, 70. Ours are not for life.
Yeah, I really, not to sidetrack our conversation, but I'm very curious. I still have a gut feeling concerning the Kennedy resignation because of his son's involvement with
Yeah, that's really
Deutsche,
weird to me.
with Deutsche Bank. I know it's probably a bit of a conspiratorial thinking, but it really makes me wonder because he had already chosen his clerks for the upcoming year. From a
read that.
You don't choose your clerks if you're planning on retiring. So
Well, and people like that, like, you know, the rich white dudes in Capitol Hill, aren't normally ones to just like, oh, I'm tired of having power now, I think I'll retire. Yeah. They don't tend to do that, especially when they're in good health. I'm just saying, it just seems sort of weird.
Yeah, something's off, but it could be from reading all the conspiracy bullshit that I do read.
Well, we got to look at wrapping things up, folks. So, because I got company waiting for me, and poor Skylar came home from work and had to go kind of right to work again. So
no, it's okay. This was fun. I really enjoyed coming on.
Well, thank you, and we appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. And before we wrap up, if you want to take time to tell everybody where to find your channel and anything else you want to promote, please do.
Yeah, I mean, I just let anybody, if you love like these kind of conversations, atheist debates. My name's Skylar Fiction. Just go to YouTube, type Skylar Fiction. I'm on Google Plus also. I got Patreon also. Anyways, SkylarFictionShow@gmail.com. You want to come check me out? If you want to email me, come on the channel. Yeah, that's it. You know, I love to debate. That's my kind of thing. So if you enjoy debates and seeing Christians get on quite a bit, it's pretty hilarious. So check it out.
Although I gotta say, my frustration level, like there were a few times I had to stop the video and be like, okay, I need to do something else for a few minutes before I jam a pencil through my screen, you know?
Yeah. The amount of patience you show is, in perspective, is amazing because
you wait a very, very long time before you tell them to go eat a bag of dicks.
I try not to do that in general, but they get me. Sometimes they get me. I try my best, but like I can only take so much of it, and I'm just like I'm gonna lose it.
Oh, you know that there's actually a
excuse me, sorry.
Order a bag of dicks for people, like little candies.
That's what I should do. Send it as a consolation prize for coming on my channel.
When the Bundys took over that wildlife preserve, people were, when they were talking about, oh, we don't have any food, people were sending them bags of dicks. And the one guy even put up a video getting all pissed off. He has this huge box, and people were sending him like literal dildos and bags of dicks and stuff.
I remember that video.
Pissed off and whatnot. Well, actually, yeah, Skylar's not seen my my water bottle collection.
Oh my god, water bottle's a little intense.
It comes with its own cock ring lanyard.
Does it keep your water cool?
No, it's not very well insulated. I also have a blue one and a yellow one. A friend of mine said you probably shouldn't play with the yellow one too much.
You gotta have the matching colors. You can't gotta make sure if you're gonna have 3 dick cups, you gotta have matching colors here.
Yep. Yeah, they were a thing at Pride. I didn't go this year because we actually had other plans, but a friend of mine went down and he said they didn't have any new colors. Otherwise, I would have asked him to pick me up another one, but oh well.
Eventually have a rainbow of dick cups.
Exactly. You know, like orange one, a green one. Green one could be interesting. Anyway, Beth, where can we find you?
Just on a side note, I'll be putting the links to the stories relating to the Matt Powell video, with which was the primary reason we had Skylar on today, in the show notes later sometime.
I've got the link to the Hemant's article is
yeah,
in.
I got a few different ones. I have the Dead State article and the updates and all that stuff. But easiest way to find me is on Twitter, Dune998. That connects to my blog, Havoc and Chaos. And I just posted about 45 Diddling Priest articles. That also connects to Facebook coverage. And I do still have my YouTube, but I haven't put anything out. Every time I keep trying to, I get sidetracked. So.
It's what rabbit holes will do to you. Well, and of course, you can usually find me on Holy Crap, the Vlogcast, which is Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. You won't be seeing me too much there, though, because I got a lot going on in the next few weeks, but usually I'd be there. Just as far as some housekeeping goes, August is going to be a little light on shows. Depending on what Beth and Morgan decide to do, but I'm on vacation for 3 weeks. So they're going to have to remember how to run things if they want to. So we may have 1 or 2 shows during that time. We may not. We'll play it by ear, but I'm just warning people now that I'm sure they'll miss at least 1 or 2 in there. I'm going to be all the way. We're going to Grand Canyon, Las Vegas, and Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. So, and many places in between. I'm hoping to hang out with some podcaster people and Facebook friends that I may or may have not have met. So, if you know me on Facebook and you're in a state sort of in that area, we're driving on a motorcycle, so we're going all through in there. Who knows? Maybe we can have coffee or something. So if you know where to find me on Facebook, give me a shout. But of course, you can hear me reading the Quran, so you don't have to, at www.fullquranic.com. Loads of fun, as always. Like I said, the Elizabethan English is even better when it's translated from Arabic, not. So there's that. And of course, we will be here next week, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. I did mention we have a Patreon. We use that to pay for hosting of the website and whatnot. So if anybody feels like you want to throw us a buck or two, hey, we'd appreciate that. Other than that, we will see you next week. And thank you, Matt. Matt wished me a good trip. And Matt and Heavy and Trav, thanks for hanging out in the chat there. And we'll see everybody next week.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.